Hello, everyone. My name is Christian, and I'm a product marketer with Grow with Google. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Google VetNet Career Week fireside chat between Lisa Gevelber, Chief Marketing Officer of Google Americas Region and Vice President of Grow with Google, and Amy Goldfinger, Senior Vice President of Global Talent at Walmart. Over the next hour, we'll explore the power of a diverse workforce, what that means to an organization like Walmart, and how they are charting a path to ensure the value of veterans and military spouses are embraced by employers around the world. But before we begin, we'd like to highlight an impactful initiative recently launched by Walmart. Let's take a look.
Every new journey starts with two words: what if? What if I found a new career? What if I finally got that degree? What if I tried to turn this into a business? For your what if, Find a Future can help. Active military, National Guard or Reserves, veteran or military spouse, Find a Future meets you where you are and helps you do three things. First, we'll work together to understand your current experience, skills, and education. Then, we'll explore opportunities for the future. Finally, we'll connect you with trusted partners to find out how you can make it happen. It all begins with three intertwined tracks. Employment. Maybe you're ready for that next step. Maybe you want something completely new. You can leverage your experiences to find the role that suits you, even if it means going back to school. Education. Learning something new can be the one thing that opens doors. Get certified, pick up a skill, or even earn your diploma. You'll find a partner to help get you closer to exciting opportunities and greater pay. Entrepreneurship. Great ideas can come from anywhere. Working together, we can deliver those ideas to the world. Success stories don't happen overnight, but we want to help lighten the load. We can connect you with tools and resources to get your idea off the ground, and maybe even one day, bring your product to our customers. Ready to get started? We'll ask you some basic questions about yourself, your experiences, and where you want to go. We'll introduce you to a coach and set up a virtual meeting. From there, you'll settle on the path that fits you and where you want to be. Plan the steps to get there and start taking action. Along the way, you'll stay in touch with your coach to plan new milestones and achieve big goals. At Walmart, we're proud to be longtime supporters of our military community. Now, we're excited to have a new opportunity to support you. So come connect with us and find a future.
All right, let's jump into the discussion. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Christian, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at the Google Veterans Career Week. I run marketing for North and South America for Google, and also a program called Grow with Google, which helps people get the skills they need for their careers or to know how to run their business. And it's my absolute pleasure to also be an executive sponsor of Google's Veteran Employee Network. I'm joined today by Amy Goldfinger, who's the SVP of Global Talent at Walmart. There's a big job. And her career has been amazing. She's done everything you can imagine in the human resources area, from transformation to leadership development to talent acquisition, talent development. Really has so many firsthand insights, I think, to share with us, and also has done amazing things with the veteran and military spouse community that we're going to get a chance to talk a lot about today. So welcome, Amy, and thank you so much for joining us for Veteran Career Week here at Google.
I am so delighted to be here, Lisa, with you and the entire audience. Couldn't be more thrilled to support our veterans and our veteran community. So terrific. Looking forward to our conversation.
Great. let's jump right in. Before we get into all the amazing things that Walmart is doing, tell us a little bit about your personal journey before Walmart.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So as you mentioned, I've done a lot within the people space. And I think the thread in my own career has been this focus on the intersection between people and organizations and businesses, and how do we unlock the potential of individuals and therefore the potential in companies. And so before Walmart, I joined Walmart 3 years ago. And prior to Walmart, I led the global human resources practice at Heidrick & Struggles, which is a global executive search firm. And we were focused on searches across industry, and we were advising clients on HR transformation, talent management, their onboarding, and of course, seeking leaders to run various parts of their organizations. And prior to joining Heidrick, I was at Heidrick actually for 12 years. And prior to that, I was running a portfolio of risk management products at Dun & Bradstreet. And prior to business school, I went to Columbia for business school, but between undergrad and graduate school, I was a generalist management consultant. Part of my time was also spent in consulting around implementing, as you mentioned, leadership development programs and other human capital capabilities. But outside of work is, as we all appreciate over the past year, equally important to what happens, when you're sitting at your desk and or facing off in our world to customers. So I'm outside as much as I can. I've gotten really into gardening. We like to ride our bikes. I spend time with my stepchildren and just trying to recharge in between the day-to-day of all the challenges that we've all faced over the past year.
Amazing. I think all of us took up a little bit of gardening this year. It sounds like you might have done even more than most. I have tomatoes coming. I'm very excited.
They're very hard. I've had struggled with my tomatoes. We'll have to talk about that offline, Lisa. I'll take any tips.
Amazing. Well, you've always had a terrific career with so much, but a lot of the folks that are listening to us today are probably pretty early, I think, in their careers. And so I thought maybe we'd start just hearing from you. What advice do you have for people who are just getting started in their careers?
Yeah. Well, first I would say just starting is a substantive place to start from, meaning there are skills and experiences that you have and that you bring to the table, irrespective of roles that you've been in and, work or experiences you've had. So I think that's really important. So first I would say is continuing to build your network, build your skills, build education, gather experiences, particularly for what organizations are needing and looking for to set yourself up for success. And then I would say, how do you translate your skills and experience blended with your aspirations and what you care about to how that would help a business achieve its goals and solve its problems? So in Walmart, we're actually more focused on skills and experience than specific roles. So don't think of your role, whether it's in the military or otherwise. Think of the portfolio of skills you bring as leverageable, as translatable to the business environment. Things like operationalizing a strategy, executing a program, solving problems, managing in difficult situations, being flexible and agile. Those are all qualities that we look for, and they're very, very translatable. I would also say, get to know and learn the business environment and how your skills translate to that. So that's a really important and valuable way of investing your own time in exploring what might be first or next. The other aspects, Lisa, that I think are important are, making sure you continue to get out of your comfort zone. Whether you're junior or you're senior, it's about how do you learn quickly? As I referenced, how are you agile? How do you bring new thinking to solving problems? We want fresh perspectives. And so pushing yourself in those regards. We talk about growth mindset. I could imagine that's fairly familiar to the Google world as well. So through learning, through focus and hard work, people can, we believe people advance themselves and help others do that. So we look for that level of curiosity. Another way we think about it is people talk about digital everywhere. Digital. We think digital is far beyond technology. It's a mindset. It's about acquiring new skills, as I mentioned. It's the opposite of being fixed, right? So the pandemic tested our limits personally and professionally. And so how do you bring that? And then the final thing I would say for anyone looking to pivot or start, where they are, I would say we're really moving into, and we have moved into this phase of humanity, people first. And that means, being mindful about how we achieve our goals by caring, respecting, valuing one another, having that sense of community and humanity. I think these are aspects where it's really relevant for the audience here as well, and really valuable to companies like Walmart. One of our key values is providing service to the customer. And so these are areas, that's the heart of humanity, right? How do you help someone and bring that forward, because it is deeply valued. That cannot be, we can't use technology to bring empathy. And so we're really committed to that. So as you think about your own strengths and leanings, bring all of that forward, and that's a great place to start.
Wow, that's so much good wisdom. And I think one of the most important insights that you just said, Amy, too, is like a focus on skills, right? Because skills are what you get to take with you no matter what job you're in. At the moment, I think that's such good advice, working on your skills. For those of you who are potentially about to transition out of the military or know someone who is, we built a way to help you transition from the military into civilian jobs, a tool on Google where you can type, jobs for veterans right in the search box, and then it'll ask you for your military occupation specialty code. And after you enter that, we'll show you jobs that are available right now that use the same skills as the job you did in the military. It's all based on what Amy just said. It's this idea that your skills are transferable no matter what job you're moving from and to. It's the skills that go with you, to Amy's point. And so if any of you are out there looking for a job and want to check it out, just type jobs for veterans right in the Google search box, and it'll show you, again, jobs that match kind of the skills that you already have for what you've been trained for in the military. It's super helpful. And I'm a giant fan of growth mindset. I'm so glad you talked about that, Amy.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. What we all need to be learning all the time. It's never going to be about knowing the right answer. It's going to be about trying things. And obviously sometimes those things will work and sometimes they won't, but we get to learn from it every single time.
Yes.
So
something you said, Lisa, first of all, I think that's awesome what Google has done in terms of its search capability and using it to help align people and their skills. The other aspect is just when I used to develop other leadership development programs throughout my career, which we referenced, we often looked to the military and their training and development programs as the pinnacle of how you develop leadership. And it's not just the hard skills, including the hard skills, but also the soft skills around collaboration and teamwork and leadership. And so those are the they're universal, they're essential, they're really translatable into the business world. And so, as any of you are thinking about that transition, don't discount those aspects. They're what drives people forward and helps people progress.
yeah, I love that. I think the military is exceptional at, you succeed or fail as a team, right? And I think in real life, that's the way we all need to operate too. I think that's one of the hardest transitions people have when they leave school and go to the world of work, is they're used to focusing on, what do I personally deliver? What, I'm successful based on what I do. But when you get into the world of work, as we all know, really it's based on what we all do together. So I think your point is so spot on, Amy, that it's really about the collective. And that's something obviously that the military and also the military spouse community knows so well, right? It's about how do we work together. And the people who succeed, I think, certainly in corporate America, are the people who know how to build and nurture teams and help other people succeed, right? So exactly what you were saying, Amy. Great. So let's talk a little bit about your work at Walmart. You mentioned that Walmart has this culture of service and it's really driven by purpose. At the same time, I believe Walmart is the largest employer in the US. I think there's 1.6 million employees in the US and maybe 2.4 million around the world. So that's a really big ship to steer. And really hard when you have a huge organization to really keep, nurture, and protect culture. So, can you talk a little bit about how have you guys kept your culture strong, even though it is such a a large organization?
It's a great point, Lisa. And at Walmart, our purpose and values have remained consistent since the beginning. And I think consistency helps our culture thrive at such a large scale. As you know, largest private employer in the US, 2.2 million people globally. I mean, just, it's really comes down to our purpose. So our purpose is to help people save money so they can live better. It's what drives us to have a positive impact. It's why we do what we do. And then what guides our purpose is a set of beliefs that have been passed down from our founder, Sam Walton. And those beliefs or core values represent and reflect what we stand for. They include acting with integrity, striving for excellence, serving the customer, and respecting the individual. They're uncompromising. And we find many veterans can relate to our culture because of that consistency to serve our customers, our communities, and ultimately, honestly, each other. So that's sort of the core. It's pervasive. You feel it in any Walmart, in any market, country. These are all really consistent. I would say there are three other areas that also stand out as we look to attract and retain veterans and military spouses. And those are diversity, growth, and opportunity. So starting with diversity, we build and grow upon our inclusive practices. This is what I wake up and me and my team, our collective effort of just leaning into the diversity of our field associates, generating ideas within the company, making sure our practices are inclusive, constantly striving to expand the diversity of our workforce. And that's diversity in every way that we would define it, including experiences, backgrounds. The second piece, in addition to diversity, is growth. So we continue to invest in the growth of our, and have a promise, a live better promise for our associates. And you'll see this theme through Find a Future, of course, but for example, making education more accessible and affordable to our hourly and field associates. We call it Live Better University. So for $1 a day, you can earn a debt-free education, a degree, a certification, and come out of that with new skills, as we were talking about, and new credentials. We also provide immersive training. We have over 200 Walmart academies. They're in our physical stores. And these are programs that teach retail leadership skills to our hourly and salaried associates. And finally, as it relates to growth, we have a teaming concept. So associates actually learn several roles to develop their skills and position them for the future of work. Again, building upon and creating agility, I think, in our workforce such that anyone could, perform different roles, and then you have the opportunity to build on that as you want to and aspire to advance and take on more responsibility. Which leads me to the third piece, which is around opportunity. And we talk about having a ladder of opportunity. And so 75% of our store managers started as frontline hourly associates. More than 500 people are promoted every day at Walmart. So with those 2.2 million associates, the opportunities are sort of endless. I mean, we have weathermen, we have technologists, we have health and wellness experts, we have merchants and operators and supply chain leaders. So again, opportunity abound, and we want to continue to create those paths and opportunity. Our founder always said, our people make the difference. And I think it's true for us today that associates are at the center of our business in the same way that our customers are. So I And I hope that it's easy and sort of relatable for veterans and military spouses to adapt to the consistency of our culture of service, and that we are always talking about, how are we making a difference for other people? So that's how we approach it.
Wow, I think people are certainly lucky to have access to all of those opportunities and programs. And who'd have thought that there were weathermen working at Google? Can I just say there's a new one? But
think about our supply chain.
Yeah, no, I think that the important point about that is actually that the folks on this call who are thinking about what they want to do next, whether they're starting out or advancing in their careers, can think really broadly about all kinds of jobs at large companies like, Walmart. They could be a weatherman, supply chain, as you mentioned. I think you mentioned health and wellness. I'm sure you have tons of data analysts because there must be so much data at Walmart. So it's not just about the buyers, the merchants, the folks who are working in the front lines. There's lots of ways to think broadly about the kinds of jobs you could do. So that's kind of a good, a fun story too. Maybe let's shift gear and talk a little bit about the veterans initiatives that you have. I think today we're joined by thousands of veterans, military spouses, and maybe even a few active duty service members. And you guys made a huge commitment in your Welcome Home commitment. I think you made it in 2013, so quite a while ago, with an ambitious goal to hire 250,000 new veteran associates by 2020. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you not only hit that goal, but might even have surpassed it. So tell us a little about the program and maybe the origins and the motivations behind starting it.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. The origins and motivations, I would say, of our veterans program started almost a decade ago, actually, when veteran and military spouse unemployment was very high. We can all think about back to that period of time, and the US was in a deep recession. And we knew we could do something given the high demand for great talent and help put people to work, give people opportunities. So in 2013, the president of our Walmart US business announced that Walmart would commit to hiring 100,000 veterans. He was at the National Retail Association annual conference and announced that. 2 years later, we expanded the commitment to 250,000 hires. And 3 years later, in 2018, we added a commitment to provide hiring preferences to military spouses as well. So not just serving the servicemen and women, but also their families. And in early 2020, we met the 250,000 veteran hiring goal, and we're really proud of that. And to date, as you said, we've hired more than 320,000 veteran and military spouses since 2013. I would say, in addition to the success in hiring, now we think and we know we could do more by focusing on the quality of their experiences, not just the number of people hired, which of course is really valuable, but also how do we support individuals who are considering or transitioning out of the military in a broader sense. So it really is what prompted us to launch this new strategy that is centered around Find a Future. We can dig into that more later, but we'll always have a high volume of hires. Already this year, we've hired about 49,000 veterans and 27,000 military spouses. So we'll always be really committed to that. But I think now our focus is to build upon that and build upon how we can, wrap our arms around people more broadly and more holistically, I guess I would say, going forward.
Yeah, you started by talking about the unemployment numbers, which obviously, huge issue back when you were starting the program. But even today, we know that folks like military spouses have about 4 times the unemployment rate of the rest of the population because they move so much in support of their families. And so I think it's all the more important we make sure we take care of our military spouse communities. And we've done a little work in this space as well. We introduced something with Hiring Our Heroes called the Military Spouse Roadmap for folks to think about different pathways in their careers. And we've also recently introduced these Google career certificates that are a portable industry recognized credential, again, something that's portable you can take with you when you have to move. So unlike, state licensing where you have to often be licensed newly in every state, if you get an industry recognized credential, you can take it with you and really leverage those skills as you have to move location and therefore jobs. So another idea for folks on the call is to check out also the Google Career Certificate Program as a way to get a portable industry recognized credential and some really good skills for today's jobs. So your comment made me think of that as well. But now you have so many veterans and military spouses working at Walmart. So, what's some of the good that comes from having such a robust community of vets and mil spouses within your organization?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I mean, we're really thrilled with the accomplishments of our veterans and military spouses that we've hired. We value them, we celebrate them, we want them to have a path with us. We believe there's a path for everyone at Walmart, and that is inclusive of our military and military spouse hires. We also have broad reach. Our operations take place in so many military communities across the country that Walmart has, I think, a symbiotic relationship at many different levels with the military community. I mean, 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of a Walmart. And so we're deeply embedded in our communities, and we take that responsibility quite seriously. But I'll tell you a story, actually. A colleague of mine, Brent, he's a fellow veteran, and at one point he was stationed in Fort Polk, Louisiana, a small town. It's about 40 miles away from the nearest interstate. And the local Walmart was a place of community for him and his family. He talked to me about his wife, saying, "Oh, let's go to the Walmart." It was a place to see people, to hang out, to, access goods that were not otherwise available, which is a big part of, Walmart providing that access. And so it was, it's a telling moment and a real moment of someone in the military finding their Walmart as a grounding. So I think being part of the community is what Walmart's all about. We help people, as I said, save money so they can live better. And we're proud of being part of our communities, and then especially serving the people who serve our country.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about the new initiative. We saw a bit about the video, but I know there's so much more to know about your Find a Future initiative. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what that one's about. I think there's 3 parts to it, and maybe take us through that.
Yeah. So it does. It centers around employment, education, and entrepreneurship. So again, building on employment to include the other elements. So we settled on these after reflecting on our strategy of how can we best meet the needs of veterans and military spouses beyond hiring. And as I mentioned, our Veterans Welcome Home commitment. So we'll continue to prioritize attracting the best veteran and military talent today and tomorrow. That won't go away, but we're expanding our talent strategy to really help advance this community's economic opportunity and well-being. So as you all saw in the video, we call it Find a Future. Focuses on the quality of experience by engaging in employment, education, entrepreneurship conversations. So it's not only about finding a job, it's about meeting you all, the veteran or spouse, where they are in their journey. So whether before leaving the service, post-service, still in the Guard or Reserves, early career, mid-career, experienced professionals, we want to understand their skills, their experience, their passions, their interests. As I mentioned earlier, we find all of that very translatable to our vast set of opportunities. And we want to help them figure out where they might go. So with our strategic partners, we're trying to provide, what do they need to get there? How do we create a roadmap to achieve the future they want as it relates to advancing their education, their employment, or entrepreneurship? We include education and entrepreneurship because we know that everyone has different goals and dreams. We realize, they can participate in our Live Better You program, which I described before, or become an entrepreneur who sells to Walmart, as the video reflected. So I'll give you an example. Sherman Williams served in the US Army for 25 years. When he was on a 15-month deployment, he came up with an idea to create an alternative beverage for how to stay alert and healthy. He named it Body Aqua, a beverage with a purpose. It doesn't have caffeine and gives you natural energy boosts. So who wouldn't want that? And he wanted to get this on the shelves. And he was invited to attend Walmart's open call. And that's where we invite entrepreneurs who hope to land their products on Walmart shelves and online. And he was successful. And now his product is sold on Walmart shelves. And so it's stories like Sherman's that are not uncommon at Walmart. And we want veterans to find their future, even if that pathway is through entrepreneurship. And right now we spend several $100 million a year on veteran-owned small businesses as product suppliers or service providers. So I think this approach not only helps veterans and military spouses live better, but helps Walmart engage and build relationships with them better as well. So that's the holistic approach that we've taken.
Oh my God, I love that. Sherman, I need to try your energy drink.
No.
I'm gonna have to go to Walmart. I love that it has no caffeine too. Like, thought all those energy drinks were chock full of caffeine, but Sherman made a better product. So
I know. I think we just gave him free advertising.
there we go. We're all going to run out to Walmart to get ours. I know I will. I love that story. And I think, we see so many veterans and military spouses become entrepreneurs. About 9% of American small businesses actually are run by veterans. And so definitely, I think there's a huge opportunity for all of us as consumers, as well as our companies, to support veteran-owned businesses. And Google actually made a way that you can identify your business in Google Search and Maps as veteran-owned. There's just a little badge actually you can add to your free business listing on Google. So if there's anyone on this session who owns a small business and isn't aware of that, please go ahead and tell the world that you're a veteran-led business by adding that badge to Google Search and Maps, your listing on Google Search and Maps. I think it just helps consumers, support you. So really fun that Walmart is not only employing veterans, but encouraging this entrepreneurship and supporting the businesses of these, veterans and military spouses. I love that story. So I'll do maybe one final question, Amy, and then folks in the audience, if you've got questions, in a few minutes, Amy and I are going to turn it over to your questions and see if we can help answer anything for you. So Amy, I guess we talked a little bit about people who are starting out in their careers and the importance of skills. We've talked a little bit about the great benefits, that Walmart is providing for education and training. Is there any general advice you have? There's probably some folks on this call who are career switchers, who have been doing one kind of career maybe their whole lives and are really thinking about doing something new. Is there any other specific advice that you might have for folks who are thinking about, changing careers?
Yeah. I have my own experience changing careers. I mean, while I can wrap it up in a neat story, it didn't feel like that. If anyone remembers that game, Chutes and Ladders, when we were kids, you roll the die and then you sometimes go up the ladder, sometimes you go sideways, sometimes you take a step back in order to go forward. I think of careers like that. And there were moments where, what am I going to do? And I don't, where I just felt like I hadn't quite found my groove yet and so forth. And I think the best advice is to have a lot of conversations. People are happy to provide their own wisdom and experience. And that doesn't mean it's your experience, but you can just learn so much from building that network. And I find now more than ever, we're so connected and people want to help. And so my first, and primary piece of advice is reach out to people, ask for time. Can I borrow 5 minutes of your time? And by the way, how can I help you in return is a great way to engage in a conversation with someone, to, ask them, how do you spend your time every day? How did you get to this point? What skills and, education did you pursue to arrive at this point. So I think for switchers, people who are looking to pivot, that's great. And then you got, sit in a dark room and think about what we were talking about, which is, okay, let me say this. Most people underestimate their skills, particularly, I will say, women and underrepresented minorities. It's just, the data will say people underrepresent their skills. So be bold in terms of and ask someone, what do you think my strengths are? Where do you think I have some unique skills and experiences? And it's really important because that's how you can learn, get out there, tell your story, and see how it applies. I had never done recruiting before when I joined Search Firm, but I had done strategy. I said, you know what, why don't I come in to the organization and try to leverage something I've done before? And I have a real passion for people and talent. And so I'm going to bring my passion, I'm going to bring my interests, and I'm going to bring my experience. I'm going to do great work. And then I want to pivot. I knew, let me just get in and then I'm going to pivot. And that's, I was vocal about that. Hey, I think I'm going to want to get into the business of this. I'm going to want to recruit. So all of those pieces together, I think, can help unlock opportunity. And like I said, I think don't underestimate people's willingness to help.
Yeah, I love that story. I love the chutes and ladders analogy. When I was a kid, we played that all the time, and there were definitely some, tall ladders and tall slides. But the game will teach us that even when you hit that tall slide and you end up back at the bottom, eventually you can make it back to the top. So I've never heard that analogy to careers before, but I love that. I can totally relate to it, and I bet a lot of folks on the call can too. And I also just want to reinforce something that you said around a lot of times, especially women and minorities will underestimate their own skills. And I think there's a lot of data out there that says they're less likely to try out for a job or apply for a job if they don't feel like they meet all of the criteria or, prerequisites listed. Whereas, sometimes other folks do have a lot of confidence and will apply anyway. So I just encourage all of you to, think more limitlessly about what you have to offer. As Amy said, you have a lot of skills, even if you don't have the perfect checklist of what's in that job description. There's lots of things you can apply, as Amy used in her own example. And I love, Amy, your idea about asking other people what you're good at, which I think sounds kind of foreign to people. Like, oh, really? I would ask someone else what I'm good at. Isn't that odd? But I think that's really clever, because I think we all underestimate what we're good at because it comes easy to us. Yes. So we think nothing of it. Well, like we don't even think of it maybe as a skill because it just came naturally to us. But other people will maybe appreciate that about us and then remind us of these skills we have. I often also say when something's really fun for you, that's probably a skill you have. Like one additional way to learn what you're good at is to think about times when you've really kind of been in the zone and had a great time and really had fun, because probably it came from a skill you have that you don't even think about. And so that's another way to think about and learn about your skills.
Love that. That's the growth mindset too.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's see what the audience is curious about. So I think, hold on a second, I'm going to adjust my screen here so I can better see this. Okay. We've got our first question. I'm just going to read it out loud here, Amy. So Mike M. wants to know, for transitioning military members with a year plus before transition, what certificates, education, et cetera, do you recommend to help bolster an individual's business acumen and resume desirability for individuals striving for business development, strategist, or manager roles?
Yeah. So I think generalist business skills are really, really valuable. So part of that teaches the language of business, if you will. So, aside from mentioning a specific course or certification, look for certifications that give generalized business knowledge. Things like overviews of how we look at financial statements and what it means to, operations or structures of organizations. Like, what does it mean to, report in this environment, right? In the business environment versus in a military structure. I think that's where you can get a lot of sort of those foundational skills. And that's where I would start. Just sort of learn the language of business, take those certifications that are general business management, and it will set you up well to come in and be able to, you always come in, there are so many acronyms. Anyone here has lived through the maze of acronyms, but once you start to get the language of business, it can really unlock the potential.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, sorry, I'll just add that as you research roles or you look at backgrounds that look interesting, like that's another way to research and get smart. See what degrees do people have? What certifications do they have? Oh, that role is really interesting. To your point, I really love, solving operational problems. So let me go look at some people in companies who are, senior manager of operations. What is their portfolio? And so that can help also as you roadmap, what do you need to be qualified for the role? And so, as I mentioned before, having conversations and doing that research can really help.
That's such good advice. And I love this thought about really understand how the money works. I mean, all organizations, big or small, you have to understand, how does that organization bring in money and spend, and how does money get spent, and how do all those things work in the end to help make that organization successful. And so you can never go wrong. I think I'm not a finance person myself, but even understanding the basic financials, I think, is smart no matter what function in an organization you're going to want to play. And I think, Mike, to your question, now more than ever, there's so many good education or certification opportunities that are online. So it sounds like you have a year left before you're, done with your service, which probably means it's hard for you to go sit in classroom somewhere. But the good news is there's a lot of those things online now. I would just say, be thoughtful and choose a really high quality course. If you're going to spend your time and energy and your dollars for it, make sure that the content is high quality. It comes from a decent brand or organization, because probably also you're going to want to list that certification on your resume, and other people are going to look at the brand and to think about, how high quality was the thing that you the content that you learned. And so I would say, be thoughtful about it. But the good news is there's lots of good courses online now. I think COVID even helped accelerate some of that and helped accelerate the acceptance of some of that online learning too. So anyway, good luck, Mike, with that. I've lost my ability to see questions. Okay, there we are. We're back. Okay, Stephen M asks, Amy mentioned wrapping their arms around individual employees. How do you accomplish that when your hiring is at the scale of millions? It sounds impressive. It sure does.
And this is really relevant to, I think, this audience, Lisa, which is we really lean on our managers to be great managers. And it's so important that they really are able to, exactly like you said, wrap their arms around people and understand and have those conversations about their, development, aspirations, giving feedback, helping people grow and learn. It's very in line with our purpose and values. It's, as we talk about respecting the individual, helping people move forward is a big piece. So when I say wrap our arms around, that's really what I'm talking about, is this back to our clear priority around growth and opportunity. We need to ask people and help people feel heard, feel valued, see the opportunity, point them in the right direction. I think also we have we call our employees associates. So just to clarify, but so what we call our associate or employee resource groups, these are in organizations, groups of individuals, whether or not they identify with the given group, it's generally open to all, but these are collective groups with common interests. So we have LGBTQ plus groups, we have our Black and African American groups, our Latinx groups. We also have Walmart Serves, which is an associate resource group that is for veterans, military families, and allies. And those are great ways in which we collectively wrap our arms around one another, you know, finding the commonality, shared experiences while still being part of a larger team. So it's the first to also include our field workforce. So when you think about in the US, our 1.6 million are invited into this group and this community. And that's a great way to also, you know, wrap arms around one another.
I love that. We have we have employee resource groups at Google as well. And I personally have made some of my closest friends actually, and through the work that I've done volunteering as, you know, members or even as leaders of these employee resource groups. I was the founding executive sponsor of our Latinx employee group here at Google. And as I said at the beginning, I'm the proud executive sponsor of our Veteran Employee Network group, which is the amazing group of folks who, among other things, have all volunteered to put on this great Veterans Career Week this week. So those employee resource groups really are great ways to feel a sense of community and also to give back a little bit and, you know, help others around you. So couldn't agree more with that thought.
Your leadership is really valuable in those contexts. I think the groups make a really big difference for people looking to connect, and we're trying to do that virtually now. And I think they're, you know, more critical than ever.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's see what the next question is. Barry M asks, are you seeing veterans being valued for their inclusion and diversity skills? I know all organizations are emphasizing these key elements of respect. The Army also reinforces these elements through training, and it's highlighted in their evaluations.
Yes, it's such a great question. I mean, the answer is, you know, simple answer is yes. I mean, absolutely valued. You know, every person, yes, we're a really large organization, but every person that joins adds to our community, reinforces, you know, we're really focused on amplifying the values I mentioned and what we think is important, respect for the individual, which includes how we're inclusive and have a diverse workforce. So I would say absolutely, this is qualities that, you know, aren't unique to veterans, but veterans bring this to the table in a really positive way for our whole company. And by the way, when I say diversity, I mean the diversity of your experience, what you've seen, what you've done, the skills, you know, as I mentioned, the perspective. So I think it makes us stronger, and it's highly, highly relevant and part of the reason, you know, just one of many, many reasons we're so committed to the community.
Yeah, it's such a key value I think you learn in the military, right? Everyone is by nature an essential part of the team, no matter what your background is in any way. And so I think those are values that vets and mil spouses bring with them kind of automatically, and we need more of, you know, in the corporate world. We need, you know, we're all working hard to do more on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. We have many veterans from around the world joining today. Does your focus on veterans include international veterans?
So the short answer is primarily we are focused on US, but appreciate that there are, you know, many individuals who are serving and have served, you know, outside of the US. You know, this includes anyone who's sitting, you know, overseas and could, you know, come and join us here in the US. We're really interested in having conversations with people who are stationed overseas to see how they can join our ranks in some capacity. But our commitment is really within our US business, but that doesn't exclude by any means people who are sitting overseas.
Great. All right.
It's worth mentioning. We also like to explore how do military spouses join us in remote roles, even though they're overseas. So there's some flexibility around that. In other words, don't exclude yourself from Find a Future. Assume that you're part of our community and that we can be helpful. We'll do our best to meet your needs.
Great. Okay. Will Walmart be reviewing corporate functions normally assigned to headquarters in Arkansas for remote opportunities? Well, there's a timely topic. I think everyone's talking about remote these days. Is it worth applying and having the discussion with the recruiter about the role being remote?
Yeah. So the way we're thinking about the future ways of working, and that's how we're thinking about what's next as we all ideally emerge. I mean, we're still in the pandemic, but as we emerge, the way we're thinking about it is there are critical moments when it makes sense for us to be together. We remain really committed to our various offices. We're building a phenomenal campus in Northwest Arkansas that, the likes of many of the coolest tech companies, right, have, architected, and it's on the cutting edge. So we're really committed to having people together and the value of that. That being said, we also have parts of our organization, like our technology organization, that is permanently moved to we call a primarily virtual way of working. So there'll be moments when everyone's together, but for the most part, people will be working at home in hubs that are critical to our organization. So what I would say to that question is it depends on the role and where the role needs to be in order to be successful. Typically that's defined up front. So, we know whether and where the person will benefit most from working. And on top of all of that, we're building in a lot of flexibility. So we want to retain what we learned through the pandemic about people needing to have flexibility, whether it's supporting their family in a given way or their personal needs or just where they work most effectively. So that overlays our general approach to it. So I would say, depending on what role you're looking at, we have clarity and specific to that role. And then otherwise, we're, like I said, building around flexibility. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think we are all trying to do a lot of adapting in the last year, and I don't think anyone could have predicted the situation. And I definitely feel for people like you, Amy, who are running talent at this moment of great change and ambiguity. So definitely imagine your world has turned more than upside down over the past year or so.
We haven't talked about this explicitly, but I just want to say to that point, the market, and I'm speaking mostly in the US, but I think it pervades, has really shifted in the last couple of weeks, I would say, maybe months, but a matter of weeks, a couple of months. Someone told me, so I don't know the source, but I'm just going to use this as a directionally interesting. There are 8 million open roles and only 1 million people to fill them. So it is a candidate's market, no question about it. There's tremendous competition for talent. And that gives, a lot of opportunity for people to shape their next steps according to, their needs and interests and so forth. So I just say that because, if a person really can't relocate or, for whatever reason needs to work at home or just prefers to work in an office, you really have tremendous opportunity to find that fit. And I hope that we can be a place to explore for that. That I would just say from a market perspective, it's a pretty wild time. I wonder if you're experiencing that too, Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, good healthy competition for tech talent. I always has been. I think always will be in our world. So, okay, let's see what's next here. In networking authentically, how has the pandemic? Oh, interesting. How has the pandemic impacted the networking process?
Oh, that's such a great question. To give it a little bit of thought. Well, I'll say just to my point now, given the market, I think there's a lot of people who are really interested in understanding individual needs, bringing that, focus on listening to what you need and being open and really curious about what fits for you, and sort of some, that empathy around, what is your personal circumstance. And so I think the pandemic has really opened up more dialogue, more interest in having those conversations than before. I mean, I don't have a measurement around it. I'm always interested in data, but I suspect that there's a lot of receptivity to these kinds of conversations if you were to reach out to someone, given the dynamics in the market.
I was going to say the same thing. I think now that we're all using video conferencing of one sort or another all the time, it might almost be easier because you don't have to travel to see someone that you really want to talk to if they're in a different location. Now I think it'd be a perfectly accepted thing to say, hey, could you spend a few minutes with me, even on a quick video chat? And before, if that person was far away from you, you'd have to get on a plane or drive quite a distance. But now it's almost easier because I think you could reach out to anyone you want, no matter how far away they are. And it's so common practice and to hop on a Google Meet, have a quick video call with someone that maybe you wouldn't have had a chance to anymore. And I think it is easier to build rapport on a video, meeting than it is, on the phone for sure. So even though you can't meet in person, which is always ideal, in some ways it might open up even more opportunities to chat with people. So maybe technology is a helping hand on this.
Yeah. I think it's important to be comfortable, right, with tech-enabled relationships and this new this refreshed sort of digital environment. No question about it. And it's more efficient, I'll just say. I think a 10-minute video calls, those can be really valuable calls.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. We're going to take one last question and then I'm going to wrap up. With Walmart's dedication to veteran and spouse employment, are you considering becoming a Department of Defense SkillBridge authorized organization? Well, there's a very specific question.
Very specific. The truth is I'm going to need to check with my team on that. I don't know the answer to that specifically. As far as I know, and I'm going to take a swing at this, that we're considering it. Certainly the CFP program is on that path, so it's under consideration, and we'll have a firmer point of view soon.
Great. Amy, I cannot thank you enough for sharing all of your wisdom, telling us not only a little bit about what Walmart is doing in this area, but sharing like your career journey and all of your expertise. It's not very often that folks on this call would get to hear from someone like yourself who's been so successful, not only at managing your own career, but helping other people manage theirs at such a scale. I think you must have done that more than probably anyone at the planet at this point. So thank you so very much for joining us here today, Amy.
It's been absolutely a pleasure. Very committed to this community, and Lisa, just fantastic to get to know you as well and have a chance to talk to you today. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. And for all of you who are still on the call, I want to encourage you to stay tuned, because coming up next is a call with Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, very own Chief Financial Officer Ruth Porat, and she is going to be talking to the CEO of Johnson & Johnson, Alex Gorski. So that should also be a super interesting conversation. Amy, thank you again, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Take care and be safe.